Hello and welcome to MKUSUAL. It's like MK Ultra but more normal. I'm Dennis.
I'm Nick.
And today we got a story of a historical kind of badass, a guy that you've probably read about, Nick, or were forced to read about. I think we all were at one point. And
Philip Seymour Hoffman.
yes. All of our AP history classes, the Philip Seymour Hoffman segment of study. No, actually, this is one half of Lewis and Clark.
Okay.
Guys you don't think about that often, do you?
Well,
They're almost like mythical, like...
Lewis and Clark. Yeah, I think about them a lot because I go to Westport and there's a statue of them.
That's basically their legacy. You learn about them in school.
Yeah.
And then you see little signs and statues.
Kansas City, famously on the Oregon Trail.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Famously, also Oregon. On the Oregon Trail. Also Louisiana for some reason. Just kidding.
I was like, damn, I really coasted through high school.
All right, so I'm going to give a little biography of Meriwether Lewis. Okay.
All right.
Then we're going to get into something really weird about him.
I'm excited because I know nothing about this.
I don't either, dude. I think the only thing other than that they did the big trek that people know is Sacagawea.
Yeah, it's like a myth almost.
I was just going to say that. They're like a modern myth. They're like Paul Bunyan or something. Like they did this big monumental task. They're going to go down in history forever. And they have their sidekick companion. We're not going to get into her.
They abducted a 14-year-old girl and took her to Oregon.
That was part of the beautiful American story. Was abducting a child. She was a gift, Nick.
Oh yeah, I forgot.
She was
trafficked by her family.
That makes it better.
Sorry.
So don't apologize to me.
I'm just sorry.
Love is never having to say you're sorry. Meriwether Lewis, my friends. Born 1774. I'd say younger than I thought he was going to be.
Yeah, same.
In Virginia. Meriwether Lewis was an explorer, soldier, and politician. Which makes sense.
Men aren't men anymore.
Men are not men, dude. They have like one job their whole life. Best known for leading the Lewis and Clark expedition from 1804 to 1806 to explore the western part of the old United States.
So he's like the Abercrombie in the Abercrombie and Fitch.
Yep, Lewis and Clark. They did. They put their names in the right order.
Yeah.
Post-expedition, he was appointed governor of the Louisiana Territory. You ever hear that?
Whoa.
In 1807,
No.
which was like everything east of the Mississippi.
Yeah, most of the U.S.
Dude, he was like czar of freaking American Siberia. Like a position that gave him considerable power in the frontier regions. I was never taught this.
I learned that when you said it just now.
I learned it when I read it yesterday. Freaking dude.
You already blew my mind, Dennis.
That puts we could just call this a short and end it there. That puts a whole other freaking, and you're about ready to hear why. That puts a whole other political crazy bent. Like, why don't they tell you that, first of all? Look up a freaking, I'll just put it right there. That's so much land. He was governor over more land than literally the entire United States at the time.
Yes.
He was overseeing more of the United States than the president was. Okay. Now, tragically, he had a strange decade, dude. Okay, so in 1804 he starts the expedition, gets back 1806, 1807 he's put over this huge area of land, given considerable power, dies of suicide October 11th, 1809. It didn't even last 3 years. Didn't serve a term as governor of this new huge plot of land.
What, did he invent an electric car?
His death occurred at Grinder's Stand, a remote inn on the Natchez Trace in Tennessee, during a trip back to Washington, D.C. Officially, Lewis died from a gunshot wound to the head and chest, ruled a suicide.
Whoa.
The coroner's report concluded the gunshot wound to the head and the chest was a suicide.
No comment.
I was going to say, care to comment? Another thing they really don't teach you, within 3 years of getting done with that expedition, he's given an amazing amount of power and then shoots himself twice to death, allegedly,
Also,
while on a political trip.
the types of weapons that were available in 1809.
If you had the wherewithal to shoot yourself twice, why didn't you just do the head twice? I mean,
Damn, I really fucked up.
if nothing else, there's a whole conspiracy thing here we're going to get into. If nothing else, this just proves how badass people were back then. All right. Prior to this supposed suicide, Lewis had been struggling with depression and had a history of mood swings. His letters suggest he felt persecuted and under intense pressure as a governor, which allegedly led to the suicide. Now, there is a theory that he was murdered, believe it or not. Yeah, keep going.
I asked ChatGPT, were repeating rifles available in 1809? So, like, maybe an accidental discharge, like he shot and then the gun dropped and he was still... No, repeating rifles were not available in 1809.
I don't think repeating anything was.
Muzzle-loading muskets or rifles requiring the shooter to reload after each shot. So he either had 2 loaded weapons, shot one, missed...
I gotta read this.
Go ahead. Sorry.
I would
That's
read
just
the
like-
autopsy, but it's probably in cursive, so I'm fucked.
It's probably in like a beautiful calligraphy.
So there's obviously odd circumstances. Yeah, it is beautiful, and they use F's instead of S's. His suicide. Strange inconsistencies, odd circumstances surrounding his death. Okay, gunshot wounds, multiple shots. The gunshot wounds were unusual, to say the least. The official reports indicated that Lewis had 2 shots. Oh my God. 2 shots to the head.
Wait, so it's 3 now?
It's 3 shots. He shot himself in the head twice. And then shot himself in the chest.
Also, the calibers.
This is such a bad...
What the fuck? The calibers of muzzleloaders were like, some were smaller, but the average was like a 50 caliber bullet, which is a half an inch. It's like a Barrett 50 cal rifle.
It's not funny, but...
Not as much velocity, but like the bullet was that big. That would just like, if you hit yourself once, the hole would be enormous. Especially at close range.
It reminds me of Austin Powers. When he tries to kill Will Ferrell,
Yeah.
and he's like, "Oh no, they shot me! Oh no!" And the angles of the shot suggest someone may have shot him at close range, possibly in the back of the head, which would be hard, to say the least. This says which would be hard for someone to do alone. Yes, I would say shooting yourself twice in the back of the head would be and then once in the chest.
To be
would
fair,
be difficult to do alone.
To be fair, if you were going to shoot yourself, it would be at close range. Mm-hmm. You're not going to like pull a string from across. You might miss.
That's the only part of the
Might
story
shoot.
that says suicide. This is way before CSI. This is the whole John Mulaney detectives before DNA evidence. They see a pool of the killer's blood and go, "Ooh, gross, swipe that up." I mean, they just found the guy alone in a hotel room.
Okay.
I guess with 3 pistols. Can you imagine how long that like the other people in the hotel room? They're like, "Oh,
Hey, keep it down, buddy."
stop shooting yourself repeatedly."
Trying to bang one of my slaves over here.
Unusual to say the least.
Okay, and also if you know anything about like ballistics, when okay, if you're shot, the entry wound.
When you were shot.
if you shoot yourself, the entry wound is the size of the projectile. And the exit wound, once it hits any solid matter, expands and that energy is carried outward. And so the exit wound is always much bigger. Unless it's traveling at a super high velocity, then it will pass through before that energy is dumped into whatever thing. I would say if you were shot in the back of the head, the front of your head would not be there, especially at close range.
Yeah.
Just, whatever. I'm off topic. This is
No, that's completely on topic. We're talking about a bro who shot himself in the head twice.
I just can't
allegedly.
I just can't believe Hillary Clinton was born in 1774.
So let's just blow through some. Okay, so
We are never gonna make money on YouTube.
they won't let it happen. The Illuminati. Prove them wrong.
Prove them wrong.
Freaking subscribe.
This
Prove
is a
them
grassroots movement.
Trying to get the word out about important.
I keep
recent events
derailing. You're trying to present
the suicide of Lewis and Meriwether. Meriwether Lewis.
Okay.
Okay. Here's the accounts. There's a number of accounts about the discrepancies of this that aren't the obvious about the 3 gunshot wounds to the head. One, the people at the hotel report that he was in good spirits, had recently received letters of support from Thomas Jefferson and numerous other people who were big fans of his. So everything was looking up on his trip. He was going to go meet with old TJ.
Imagine you're down at the pub and the little post boy comes in. Sir, a letter
From Thomas Jefferson.
and it's from you got tweeted at by Thomas Jefferson, and you're gonna tell people. You're gonna, unless it's like, where's all my money for that expedition, bitch? You owe me. I told you I would lend you that money, not fund it. Anyway,
Here's the other thing. He was in the process of writing a letter to his mother, which he did not finish when he supposedly did this.
okay, where's the letter now? How do we know this?
I don't know.
Okay,
I don't know anything about
the
history.
Smithsonian has it,
I
and
know.
it's just disappeared.
It's in the big Raiders of the Lost Ark vault. Discrepancies in the account. Eyewitness testimonies. People who encountered Lewis before his death mentioned no signs of someone contemplating suicide, although that can be somewhat common. Witnesses, the innkeeper and his wife, who were primary witnesses to the death, gave inconsistent accounts about the events leading up to it, fueling suspicion of foul play. All right, so shit be weird.
This was okay. Here, actually, this is kind of. I had always heard that people who were doubting the Lewis and Clark expedition said they wouldn't be able to resupply. So how would you feed that many? How would you feed everyone?
Oh.
And so they were like, well, you would have the amount of weight that you would have to carry in musket balls and black powder, and the guns themselves would make it very difficult to travel that far to hunt and blah, blah, blah. So there was a theory that they used an air rifle. And I looked, and when I asked, were repeating rifles available in 1809, it said no, but the Girardoni air rifle used by the Austrian military in the late 18th century could fire multiple rounds, but was not widely adopted. It was a air rifle, and it had a tube, like a BB gun. You put BBs down the tube, and you could fire multiple shots based on how much compressed air you put in it.
Are you team he shot himself in the head twice?
The Lewis and Clark expedition, the rifle was famously carried by Meriwether Lewis during his exploration of the American West, impressing Native American tribes.
Interesting. So
Nearly-
they had a very advanced weapon with them.
Yes.
Okay.
So you could fire multiple shots, and if it could also malfunction and fire multiple shots inadvertently.
Yes.
And also, it might not be at a high enough velocity to kill you right away.
Okay. Okay, there could be something there, but here's some other weird stuff.
But there's a lot of other discrepancies that like.
So he had a diary.
Okay.
Kept a detailed diary during the expedition containing a wealth of information about his travels, the Native Americans he encountered, and his personal thoughts on matters. He made his friends with Jefferson. Some to many of these entries are believed to have been tampered with at best or missing, suggesting someone may have altered his writings, possibly to cover up motives behind his death. That's a pretty important historical document for stuff to go missing or be altered.
Right. Even without the suicide context and without just in the context of he is now governor of one of the most wealth-rich land masses in,
Also, there's segments of the stuff that isn't missing or altered that reflect a paranoia and distress with his political pressures, which include he was embroiled in political turmoil and conflict over the management of public lands and financial matters. It's theorized there were powerful individuals who wanted to silence him, and a bank scandal. In the months before his death, Lewis had been involved in a scandal regarding the finances of the Louisiana Territory and was possibly suspected of mismanaging funds or could have been targeted to avoid an investigation into his finances. But again, he was friends with Jefferson, and he recently got a letter of support. Now, here's some notable theories. One, private enemies, that he just had as enemies, and deal with the fraud stuff. This is the one I found interesting. Aaron Burr.
Oh.
So one theory suggests that Aaron Burr, the former vice president who killed Hamilton,
Famously,
might have been involved in a plot to murder Lewis. At the time of Lewis's death, Burr was facing treason charges and had been in conflict with Lewis. Some theories suggest Burr may have wanted to silence him to prevent him from testifying against him. Boop, boop, boop.
Well.
So it could have been Aaron Burr, world's most famous multi-murderer.
The purchase was negotiated by Thomas Jefferson, president.
With Napoleon, right? Or am I wrong?
Well, Napoleon, it says, and French officials led by Napoleon Bonaparte's financial minister, Francois Barbé Marbois. Yeah, I didn't know that Napoleon was involved in this.
But here's how deep Aaron Burr's plans went. I'll just wrap up the Aaron Burr angle.
Okay.
Aaron Burr wanted to secede the Western Territories.
To France?
No, he wanted to make it independent of the United States.
Oh, I see.
And was facing these treason charges. So he had a motive.
He needed a place to go with amnesty.
Pretty much. And he had a motive to kill this guy.
Yeah.
Now, that could explain missing parts of his diary. The other thing is, dude, there are a fair amount, and I left it out of this episode, there's a fair amount of conspiracies just involving, I ran into this stuff last night, involving stuff they might have seen or encountered. Think mud flood, think
I got you.
San Francisco,
Yeah.
think mammoths, dinosaurs, whatever, Bigfoot. It could, and this is just pure speculation, and it would be an entirely other show, but there's speculation that type of stuff could be what's missing from his diary. And in fact, he could have committed suicide, and that stuff is the reason it's missing from his diary. So, not known, no big. I mean, a big reason why people think it's a conspiracy, Thomas Jefferson, one of his best friends, this was never investigated. Total silence.
It seems like the only investigation that was done at all was
an autopsy.
Yeah, the coroner report.
Oh.
Whew.
Highly unusual. So that is the wild and wacky world of the death of Lewis and Clark. Shit they don't tell you in school, dude.
This is like a nexus point for a lot of the topics that we cover.
Yes.
And also there's like like the Kansas City being on the Oregon Trail thing, I don't know. I just like when that happens. There's mud flood stuff here. There's Lewis and Clark stuff here. I don't know. There's a Federal Reserve Bank here.
Hey, get this Clark. I was like, whatever happened to Clark? Clark became, well, one, he was like a governor, brigadier general of the Lewis and Clark, of the Louisiana Territory Army. Then he became governor of the Missouri Territory.
Well, fuck.
That's the only reason I interrupted. Seems like he lived a fairly long life for the time. Lived to 68.
Wow.
Died in St. Louis. In 2001, President Bill Clinton posthumously promoted William Clark to the rank of captain in the U.S. Army. That's an odd. I wonder what.
Why would you do that? That's weird.
That's like one of the last things he did before leaving office. That would have had to have been like the last 2 weeks of his presidency. That's such a weird thing to. I wonder what scandal.
I know why he did, because Hillary Clinton killed Meriwether Lewis.
We solved it. Hillary Clinton, time-traveling vampire, confirmed. That's the show.
The thing the autopsy report said that his body was drained of blood.
They could hear a cackling through the hallways and the yipping of a dog. Okay, we love you. Thanks for sticking with us.
We also love Hillary and Bill Clinton.
Like and subscribe if you want more historical stuff. I'm a history dude, so if you want more stuff like this, drop a comment. Bye.
Thug Life Certified.